Aloha, Aloha Nation Live here, 93.5 FM. We are the Thom and Chris show, and Gene is joining us, and we're not. And this week we didn't invite outside guests, if you will, because we wanted to do a show about two different things. One is a show about the talk radio, about the show of talk radio, about how it came about, when it came about, and whether it's been good, whether it's been bad for communities, for the way that our lives have evolved since the beginning of it. So as we usually do, I just want to really quickly just tell you some facts about talk radio. And then we're just going to elaborate on some of them as they have to do with why we do this, why we think that this is important, and why we hope that it is informative for others, and eventually, and by definition, you'll see exactly what I mean. Eventually, we're really hoping to be able to have an interactive conversation so that our listeners will be able to instantly share stories or more information, or perhaps disagree.
Yeah, we're ramping up
what
to
we're
that.
talking, and we'll
Ramp
get
up
there.
to that, absolutely.
We'll get there. Yeah. So my name is Thom. This is my lovely wife, Chris.
Hello.
And then Gene is here with us.
Aloha.
Roger is our camera guy behind the scenes. Well, sort of, kind of behind the scenes. So back to telling you what talk radio. Needless to say, the format is for talking. It's for having discussion. It can vary in whether it's done by an individual, whether it's done by a couple, or by a group of people. That have already like we are trying to do it here, where we have a round table and we have a conversation about different topics. So this one and it really was talk radio. Really was all about the ability for the listening audience to respond. So right now we can only tell you about it, but we are getting into it. So really, and just give you the facts about what it was. It certainly started as an AM thing and in radio. It was and early. I mean, much earlier, I guess, than I had thought that it was being used. But so I mean, as early as the 20s, the talk radio was started. And it was really much more often it was either strictly sports or it was strictly news. It was almost from the start. It had a very local market. It was because of course of the technology as well. So they did this in the AM radio format, and it stayed that way until FM radio. Talk radio was a part of the AM format, but it was only a little chunk of it, and then there was music and other event stuff that was done, but not as talk radio. Then when FM radio and the technologies of FM radio came into play, then the FM and the high fidelity of FM took away the musical element of AM radio, and so then AM radio producers, companies that were in that business often were the same, but to keep their AM world alive, they went heavily into talk radio.
Right.
And that was also really the beginning of where you really saw, even though right from the start that often talk shows were associated with a personality. Once you saw the AM radio format of radio have to go after almost exclusive talk radio shows, then you saw that there were personalities of all different types coming up in place, and radio station talk shows could become polemic. They could either be Some of the famous ones that come to mind that were just absolutely one side of the opinion. They would almost the entire show was as if there was no other opinion ever known, and anyone who thought any differently was just crazy to begin with. But so there's some examples. There was a radio show in the 20s by a young lady, Amy Semple McPherson, that began her radio broadcast in the 20s, and she actually, her show became so popular that she purchased her own radio station and in 1924, and then by the 30s, there started to be like controversial radio personalities, which was a brand new thing, to have someone that came on and they were, even though radio shows like the McPherson's radio show was certainly her opinion and dealt with her immediate surrounding issues, it was fairly kind and fairly nice and gentle. But in the 30s, it started to get a little bit controversial. People would and it was also
it got interesting.
Well, isn't it funny? And interesting enough, it was also sort of when it became a tool polemically, religiously, where individuals that were supporting a particular religious view, started using the mass media of radio to expand there. And then, so there was, but I thought that this was a fascinating thing that I came across, because again, this is 1930. So in the 1930s, there was a National Current Events Forum on AM radio, and it was called America's Town Meeting of the Air. It broadcast once a week in 1935, and it had panel discussions that would have the biggest news makers, so either political or business, that would come on to this radio show, this forum, and speak. And it was and they allowed audience participation. So so at that time, members, you had to physically be there. So members of the studio audience could, and I thought that this was a riot the way that it read, that they could question the guest about the topic, about their expertise, about why they were there at this America's Town Meeting of the Air, or they could heckle them.
Well, heckling is allowed?
Which, well, and it was supposedly, it was supposedly. Now, this is 1935, I kind of look forward to looking more into it to see if there's any of this available, to listen to.
Archived.
Archived stuff to listen to first of all, to get an idea of what 1935 heckling of newsmakers, of prominent newsmakers in a live studio audience, face to face, what that is.
They were just town people. They were prominent, meaning.
Well, it's the way that it's talking about this is that it was by this time, by the 1930s, these radio talk shows were reaching millions of people.
So it wasn't just local.
So, yeah, because I could say heckling your local, because they probably live next door.
Well, that seems like it could get that could be more dangerous, actually, right? Than somebody who represents an industry.
Okay.
Instead of the local grocery store guy, and you're asking him why the prices are.
Well.
But it's so that would be fun. But it was just what I found interesting about it, and I think we have found with all of the topics that we've discussed, is in part of the research is in going back and seeing how long different things have been. In each of our segments, we've talked about when things were first known, when that type of stuff. So this again. As I've said in every segment, this again was one of those things where I just thought, gosh, 1935. to go and see what heckling the newsmakers, were doing then. So just to go on a little, and that's millions of listeners, millions.
Wow.
So the listener participation, they say, has been since the 30s, and we're so looking forward to being able to do that. We will be able to do that soon. Then there was organizations and bigger radios, what do they call them? The markets that they called so bigger cities, New York,
Okay.
Boston, the bigger cities. They started to have huge impacts where they saw the power. And when you think about it in that timeline, the radio, we almost think nostalgically about images of families huddled around the radio, prior to television and certainly prior to these mediums that we have now. So they immediately, like all of these sides, if you will, all of the best that humanity has to offer, and the less than best that humanity has to offer, saw the potential and the power that a mass communication device like this could wield. It could change entire millions of people's opinions by the information that they put out. So we've been battling this in truth of the information that we get, and whether or not it's true, whether or not it's over the top, one-sided, you're not hearing the whole story, since the 1930s. And really, before, I suppose, since the written word. But they started to have personalities that became bigger than life, which they became celebrities. And this is all right on the verge of the change of the mediums, right? From a radio to millions of people having televisions. Mm-hmm. So the radio personalities were huge. And they would occasionally, and then as television, and that was mentioned here, as television became the new medium to have, then some of these personalities transitioned into the television stations. Mm-hmm. But fascinating. So the what they've accredited talk radio with, because that was kind of what we originally were looking at. It was brought up. Whether or not they were doing radio shows or doing videos of any kind was it was a community service. Was it providing any service to the community that was worth it? Is it just taking up everybody's time? Is it is it not an action that is truly serving a particular issue, and which was one of the catalysts for us wanting to do a show about talk shows, was to I guess talk about why we do this, and that part I specifically wanted Gene to be with us because Gene is Gene's vision and our vision for doing this talk show is indeed we view it as a something that we can do for our community in a way that will engage our community, in a way that will give folks a talking point, a place to say, hey, did you hear the show about rat lungworm that two members of our community sat and talked about for 2 hours? I didn't know this about that, and then it engages it. And our whole reason for doing it is to get people to talk, get people to come together and talk more and more openly about what's important to them, how they see their community in the future, which is, I think, a huge part of why we do what we do. Is we are, I know that we are greatly concerned with future. And almost so the radio shows that we're doing, the reason that we do them and love everything about what you're doing and why and believe in what you're doing for the community, for the world, for the planet, is because we need to engage. We need to get together and talk. If this the format, if us taking our time and talking with people in our community about specific issues like the rat lungworm stuff, like the homelessness stuff, like what community people are doing and thinking and feeling, if we can get that conversation to be bigger and bigger and bigger and greater, so that we then engage the people that we've entrusted with some power, the folks that we've put into elected positions, then we can go to them clearly as a community and say, this is what we envision our future to be. These are our reasons for that, and we have discussed it openly in our community amongst all of our people of our community, not little pockets that just are doing the singing to the choir stuff, where they're talking amongst themselves. They already agree, so everything is great, but they're at exactly the opposite of another group that could be one street away's vision of what they want for their children, what they want for their community, the things that they see as being positive, the things that they see as being negative, the things that they see as being important, the things that they see organizationally as a community that need to be made right.
Certainly that putting out the information is valuable.
That's why I want to do this. That's why I know that you want to do this, and it's because it's why we have teamed up with Gene, because we believe that by getting information about what we have done so far about specific issues, and getting the folks that have immediate things, the interview with Brother Kalani was, I mean, it's words stay with me. That he has said, I hear them when I think of him. And someone like him needs to be recognized. Things that he does for our community need to be and then hopefully by that show, somebody in our immediate community or somebody in our neighboring communities where he has those programs will say, I didn't know that program was available. Let's look into that.
Right.
And that's why we do this. And I think that so what we found out with looking at all of this information, all of these little pieces of paper that are all over the place here, is that right through, since the beginning of talk radio and since the beginning of mass communication, where it was more than the written word, and it could be fairly instantly looked upon as either being truth, or it would be already known as being a particular slant of the truth, because the people telling you what it is that you're hearing and then later on television seeing has an agenda. They're serving a particular agenda, so what they're showing you is a portion of the truth, and they, in order to serve their means. And talk radio was immediately used for the same, and it's so and just to summing up all of the stuff that we looked up, it went, the amount of radio stations mushroomed like almost no other business model had ever been seen to mushroom, because initially it's the technology only had so much coverage. And so, and then as soon as it was recognized as what the power that it had, then both good and bad used it, produced it, and put it into business. And then as the technology got better and better, and in individual hotspots could serve much larger markets, then those that serve their community beautifully, exactly in this way that we're hoping this does, in giving specific information about a specific place to a specific group of people on a very local way, of course hoping that information is useful to others, but those stations, like so many things that we witness in our lives, those stations that did that particular service to those little local communities, they were consumed. They were consumed by the larger markets, as the larger markets technology could now reach out and touch all of those places, and the little radio stations.
Well, yeah, from a commercial standpoint, you know, more bells and whistles, fancy jingles, and dynamic personalities could be powerful and appealing to the masses. I'm actually a one-trick pony as far as this work, because even as far back as 1920s, when radio began, America had already been a federal corporation since 1871, and that is the elephant in the room that concerns not just Hawaii, because it concerns Americans as well as
the world,
as well as Hawaiians, as well as the world. Being any country that has a central bank that, you know, is purportedly a central bank representative of the people's government, the people's best interests. Actually not. It's not what that is. These central banks get their marching orders not from the people. They're typically never audited, like the Bank of Japan. It's never audited, just like the Federal Reserve. So they get their marching orders currently, and it's been for a long time now, from the Bank for International Settlements, which I think was started after World War I. Yeah, the Bank for International Settlements. So, you know, the problem is global, and the solution is very the solution could be applied globally, and the solution must be applied locally also. I mean, local awareness,
in order to change,
that your very currency is created and controlled in secret, and you are being your name at birth. Now we're going into a little bit different area, but this is an area of talk radio that certainly, to my knowledge, is not happening anywhere in Hawaii. I get information, just like many of our listeners, from doing their own due diligence research. Absolutely. And even many so-called alternative media and news sites won't go to the point of remedy being an integral part of remedy is knowing not just who you are, but where you are and under what law you are being manipulated under, what law you have unwittingly surrendered yourself to be under. And that's why I'm a one-trick pony, because all remedy ultimately, unless we just go by the law of the jungle, where might makes right, and I'm just coming in, I got the bigger guns, and so we do what I say, or whoever would be that kind of
stronger survive.
Barbaric kind of way of life. So barbarism occurs, but much more sophisticated, and it's all under the guise of law, which is actually not law. And here's my one-trick pony story again, and people got to do their homework. Which is a beautiful thing, I think, because that way you can cut through all the political venue perspectives and get right down to what is the body of law we are operating under. Are we operating under corporate law, maritime law, admiralty law, all the laws written by men, which is a byproduct of politics and money? Or are we operating under natural law, common law, the holy law, which is not written by men, which is, fortunately for us, if we wake up in time and we engage each other in lawful truth and apply that, Hawaiian Kingdom 1839 and America 1776, both political venues founded in natural law, in God's law. Now, folks say, are you talking about religion? You're talking about God's law, but you're talking about religion. Actually not. You could say common law, natural law, God's law.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Different ways. We're going to get into that?
Yeah. We have a lot of, and I told Gene, because this is, again, this is a part of, and it's important, and it's why we wanted to not have somebody else, in another topic tonight, because I thought that we've had a bunch of shows on very specific things that are important to the folks, our neighbors.
Absolutely important.
And then, but this was, I think it was really important for us to first, I guess, say what we do, why we do this, why we do the radio show, what we're hoping to accomplish. And then we were really wanting to spend the rest of the show after about just talking about the.
Oh, I jumped the gun. I'm sorry.
No, okay. But we want to talk about, and it is the same.
Yeah.
Is because why we're doing the radio show is exactly for the things that you believe are in the natural law, the things that we see as wrong around us.
Yeah, we want remedy for things that are wrong.
And funny enough, and like, because you might have heard me say, one of the catalysts for wanting to define and talk about talk shows is because it was kind of said that enough talking. We have to deal with the problems. Enough talking. We've been talking for centuries.
Yeah, let's talk about talking.
And so it's an interesting truth. That statement is an interesting truth, and I don't say it in any way to mock the statement.
Sure, of course.
I say it because I think it's important that what it means is true, that you can't talk forever. You just can't, continuously keep talking about what you're going to do. At some point, what you talk about has to take form, bigger and stronger and more prominent and in your face, I guess, if you will, than words. And although words are
it is a form of action.
Absolutely,
sure.
It is.
Yeah.
But I do think, in keeping to make sure that I recognize the strength of the statement of you can't talk about it forever. I think that there is a truth there that can't be ignored. That at some point those words that are indeed an action, those words have to culminate into a physical action where things change. Where you stop talking about change and it actually changes. And now it's an interesting thing because it's applicable to why I said all of that. It's applicable to why we did the show, a little bit about the history of talk radio, because talk radio, one thing that we discovered was that, and that was why I wanted to give you these examples of different ones, and there's a whole bunch of them, is that those shows and that early format, that turned into action. It turned into physical action.
Yeah. Okay.
It actually did bring huge amounts of people together, and it engaged a community much larger than itself because of its ability to reach out to communities beyond where it actually physically exists. It actually, it actually hit people, that were miles away, and brought it together. And we have certainly seen now the power of the camera, of Roger's camera, the power of these microphones, the power of the internet, the power of the radio, it has given us. What's funny, that Chris, is that it has changed so that now the power of the people is at hand again. There was a time when instantaneous contact to the masses, to cause things to happen, both good and bad. There was brainwashing, and there was, and there was brain awakening, at the same time, certain people, were affected, but it was a much larger amount of people. So
in this busy time, I think talk radio is great because you're driving your kids, you can listen to something and so you might not have
It's
time to read the
engaging.
newspaper.
Yeah, no, it's true, and I think that
Certainly applies to now.
it does. And now that's, I think now we are all, and it's funny because we almost talk now about how we have information overload. We have too many sources. We're so inundated with information. And there was actually, what a great segue. There was something that I came across that I thought was interesting because it was in the research of looking up talk radio. That I came across a study that was done about talk radio, and it was, and what the study about the radio revealed was the level of stress, the burden of stress that people were feeling because of this new inundation of information. They had so much information. They're bombarded by the non-stop televisions in their homes that never get shut off. They're bombarded by computers, and they're bombarded by cell phones, and they're bombarded by the radio in their car on the way to wherever they're going. So it's an interesting thing that because I was looking for the positive and the negative, and so part of the negative part of the research that came up, and it was, it's one of those Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, Harvard School of Public Health studies, and it was that the 2,500 adults, 18 years old, and they all, overwhelmingly, there was this burden of stress immediately associated. The poll was associated with, do you have too much information? Is there just too much information in your world? It doesn't cause you any issues. And they ended up, without question, they ended up, pointing out that there was an overwhelming amount of people who said that they felt overwhelmed. They felt overwhelmed with the information. So it's a funny thing. So it's a double-edged sword, I suppose. That talk radio. It was so wonderful. It served such a phenomenal purpose. It was such a breakthrough for people of isolated communities, and even people of the proverbial big cities that you live next door to someone a wall away for 17 years, or a floor ceiling away for 17 years, and you recognize them in the elevator. You've never known their name. So those isolated spots. They and the isolated spots by proximity or lack of proximity to other people, it brought communities, it brought information out to people, good and bad. It brought, it was partly responsible for brainwashing, as I said, and it was partly responsible for brain awakening. That was our reason for doing talk radio. I wanted to take a look through it and see, what it was, what it was that it did, for us or against us. As I said as well, the second part of the show, I want to take a little break and then we'll come back, because the second part of the show has to do with the first part of the show of us doing this radio show and then being part of this radio station, is because a huge amount of the reason here is for us to, hopefully we will be vehicles of it as well, and that's part of why we wanted to do it, is because we learned so much about these topics, is to get everyone, all of our listeners and ourselves, to understand natural law, to understand what it is that when you say natural law, and you've been trying to tell people this for a long time. Again, you've had.
You're talking about me.
Yes,
Well,
you've had the ear of many, and I think it's important.
The ire and the ear, perhaps.
Well, I said, yeah, I know, but so we looked into it, and what we'll all get to hear and learn a little bit about, and what we learned is that when you say natural law, those two words, what's important here on radio shows are words, and when you say natural law, this actually it goes all the way back to Plato. All the way, the writings of Plato refer to natural law. Aristotle, needless to say, had a lot to say about it. Then it gets pretty interesting because it starts getting all jumbled up with particular belief systems where it starts serving. Where I think you'll see that it starts serving a purpose a little bit beyond what
You mean it got contaminated by human agenda? Oh, if we're not vigilant, that's human nature.
That's right. That's funny. That's funny. Human nature and natural law. So we'll be right back, Thom and Chris and Jean. Thank you, Roger. And we'll be right back after a couple of minutes. And
thank you.
And you guys can listen to some music, and then we'll come back and talk about natural law. We have a Serious Coffee in Pahoa.
Yay!
The Serious Coffee is Charlene and David Ewing. They allow us to do research there, and they will even play our shows for us for it. Also, at Sea Dandelion Cafe up in Hanaka'a, they are playing our shows at their cafe as well. Lovely young couple. You should go up and take care of them and help them, and help them be successful in our community. And the La Lima Pahoa nonprofit that Chris and I are part of as well. They have a thing coming up in Kaimu, Kalapana, at Uncle Robert's. It's going to be the first annual All Things Cannabis Hemp Festival.
Nice.
It is August 18th, 2017. This very August coming, first annual All Things Cannabis Hemp Festival. They have folks traveling, there are folks but there's a convention that this is following, right?
I'm not sure.
The convention is June 9th, and actually Green Flash, Off the Grid, and Lava are scheduled to play on June 9th.
Sounds great.
And then there's, but it goes 9th, 10th, 11th. It's a big deal. People from all over Hawaii are coming in. They have speakers from the mainland, and that one is focused on hemp. It's a hemp conference.
Yeah.
They're not going to be talking about all things cannabis, which adds a lot more diversity and interest, perhaps.
It does indeed. Yeah, but although there's a lot that has to be
absolutely. I think this is going to be very cool.
Yeah.
Where was
that one June 9th, 10th, and 11th is Hilo Hawaiian Hotel. Yeah.
Well, that's
big cover charge. So what's the cover charge at this Uncle Robert's place? You guys haven't decided yet. This is to donate, just donation.
I think it is. Donation. I'm not sure.
Okay.
We can find out more. Actually, we do have some more information here. So they have suggested it is donation. It's it's pretty funny how they've got it. The La Lima Pahoa is a tax deductible donation, and if you're feeling it, then it's $50 to $100. Loving it is $150 to $275. Living it is $300 to $400, and a patron saint is $500.
Patron saint, okay.
Pretty funny stuff. But they are great folks trying to make sure that art and music continue to play a huge role in the community of Pahoa.
Wonderful.
And that's part of it. So we wanted to talk about natural law. It's part of what you believe. It's part of what we believe, and we're trying to educate people to know about it. So what we did was we looked it up. We looked up something as simple, we thought, as natural law. And there is nothing simple about those two words. So let me give you a real quick history of how it.
The way it's defined, doesn't appear simple.
It says that the natural law, various incarnations, varied widely throughout history. There are number of theories of natural law. They differ from each other with respect to the role that morality plays and in determining the authority of legal norms. So it's an interesting thing to point out that this almost immediately goes into legal.
Okay, is this a question? Is this a Wikipedia definition?
There's one of them, yeah, one of them from
Okay.
Wikipedia, yeah.
I'll make a comment about your discovery that natural and common law are so diverse in their interpretation, and there's an agenda behind that. Okay, if in its most simple way of explaining it, natural law is not written by men. Okay, so if it's not written by men, it really can't be interpreted by men. You know, I mean, it can, but not lawfully. And the basis of natural law, now we are part of the natural creation, and the basis of natural law to adjudicate any conflict or issue between human relations, human beings, is only three things. Now, I don't know if your research turned this up, but think about it. What is the truth? Was any harm done? And what is the status of agreements? Okay?
Sure.
So those three items are how natural or common law are adjudicated. And who makes that determination? A body of sovereign peers. People who remember who they are, where they are, and they would all agree, whatever their religious background is or isn't, they would all agree that truth matters, do no harm matters, and status of agreements, treaties matter, and that's it.
Well, I mean, as early. I mean,
I want to keep it simple for myself.
Right. Well, but it's very good. Because, like I had said, and in our introduction, the Plato. So we can stretch quite a ways back here.
Yeah.
Actually, kind of makes the distinction, and of calling it natural law, and he found that it's, he of course lists, the definition for Plato, according to Plato, is that it's a orderly universe.
Perfect.
That the basis of the orderly universe, or nature, are the forms, most fundamentally the form of good, which Plato describes as the brightest region of being.
Wow.
So I mean, which is an interesting depth of words. The form of the good is the cause of all things, and when it is seen, it leads a person to act wisely. So I mean, it just keeps reiterating, I think, what you were trying to summarize and keeping it simple, but it's really so much, right? So the good is closely identified with the beautiful. Plato describes how the experience of the beautiful by Socrates enabled him to resist the temptations of wealth and sex. So what he's obviously talking about with beautiful is the knowledge of the natural law, of the way that things, not anything less. And then in the Republic, or the community, the ideal community, a city which would be established in accordance with nature. Now that's something I think that comes right out of your mouth often, is exactly those words. It is exactly to say that we establish ourselves in accordance with nature.
Well, the fortunate thing is that's already been done in this way. America was founded on natural law, 1776, Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, meaning nobody wrote it down. It's self-evident that all men are created equal, that they have the right to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. They have unalienable rights. Okay. Hawaiian Kingdom, 1839, Kauikeole Kamehameha III, also referring to natural law being the basis of law in Hawaii. God hath made of one blood all nations of men to dwell on earth in unity and blessedness. Now, he used the term God. You could say nature being the handiwork of God, You could say universal order. You could say universal one love, Yahweh. Those terms are interchangeable. Hawaiian Kingdom was founded and is, because it never ended, on biblical principles. So it makes it a Christian nation in terms of its founding. However, they are very explicit for those that would not be Christian that in Hawaiian Kingdom, based on biblical principles, an individual is not persecuted for not being Christian or for not even believing in God. But an individual will be confronted and stopped and held accountable if they're doing harm. And that's it. So we live in a constitutional monarchy that has lost its de jure government, but it's still founded under natural law or the holy law or God's law.
It was interesting, under natural law, it comes up with all of this that you see. There's examples. There's the differences. Of course they point out, but jurisprudence, keeps coming up, as part of natural law. So in the American jurisprudence, it says, the U.S. Declaration of Independence states that it has become necessary for the people of the United States to assume, quote, the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitled them, close quote.
Perfect.
So I mean,
Perfect.
Where is it that you can, I mean, it's always the same. You can.
It comes down to the same.
You've been saying this for forever. So then, I thought that this was interesting. Some early American lawyers and judges perceived natural law as too tenuous for grounding concrete rights and governmental limitations. So I think of the wording here.
Interpretations.
Lawyers and judges thought that it was too, tenuous.
What year was that?
Oh, this is early. I would have to look to see the year's reference.
Okay.
But it's
right after the Declaration of Independence.
I think it had to have been after that.
Well, I'm just wondering if it was after 1871.
Maybe, yeah, right. So then it said, now part of the logic, right? Natural law did, however, serve as authority for legal claims and rights in some judicial decisions, legislative acts, and legal pronouncements. Isn't that interesting? Robert Clinton, interesting name, argues that the U.S. Constitution rests on a common law foundation.
It does.
And the common law, in turn, rests on a classic natural law foundation.
Correct.
So, well, perhaps in theory.
Well, I mean, it's how do we apply the law?
Yeah.
Chris has an important quote about what is law and what is not. But
Dude. Well, do you want
to do that one?
Sure, yeah. Yep. So
Talk about that.
This is like a sum up from Thomas
Aquinas.
Yes.
Thomas Aquinas was, for all those that know or don't know, he was a Catholic philosopher, Middle Ages. He kind of developed the natural law from ancient Greek philosophy. And then he actually, in his books, and he was prolific and huge, big works. And he has like a summary of theology that almost to this day, the Catholic, specifically Roman Catholic religion, uses as a foundation for its justifications for many things, including the Catholic specific, the Christianity's interpretation of natural law. So tell them his quote.
Thomas Aquinas. Okay.
Yeah. So actually, a sum up, and it has a lot to do with the laws. So a sum up is kind of. So if laws are judged by conformity to the natural law, an unjust law is not a law at all. So it kind of cancels it out.
Right, the natural law does.
Right.
Because when it's unjust, it cannot be a law.
Exactly.
Yeah, then it can't be questioned. Although, and it's an interesting thing because I mean, he wrote extensively about natural law. I mean, like I said, Christianity uses a huge work of his. That, I mean, this is, Middle Ages, a huge work of his. He based his stuff on Cicero. So I mean, this like Greek philosopher of of even more antiquity, and and he pulled a lot of this of his logic from the like, much earlier versions that were based. I think the way my interpretation of this, it keeps going back to and we can talk about it, is that difference between natural law and nature. The slight separation of those two, where one is what we had talked about a little bit during the break, where one is again, everybody has that conception of the survival of the fittest, the strong survive, the weak the weak perish, and that being nature's law, and then and they kind of interpret that as a natural law, right? That's nature's law of survival.
Okay.
And then and then how does that make that jump to now where we're applying a morality to survival, right? Because ultimately, it's not our goal is to survive. Our goal is to survive as a collective group of people from many different backgrounds, many different looks and shades and sizes and shapes, and and ultimately that's survival. So we have to make that jump from our natural law, the law of the jungle, stronger survive, that, to now a moral community where I'm not going to kill you if you take my sandwich. I don't have to do that anymore. Now I'm going to apply, a more civilized, natural law. And it's going to be steeped in morality. It's going to be steeped in communal understandings and weaknesses and strengths, because ultimately, it goes beyond just the legalities. That's what I was kind of looking forward to this evening, talking about.
I got another quote, half quote.
Yeah.
And it's because you're talking about the political community, and so this is from Aristotle, and he says the best political community, he suggests, is that the best regime may not rule by law at all.
Sure, it wouldn't have to.
It wouldn't have to.
Right, and I mean,
Because you just all get up,
right,
well, not
right.
just get all get up, but you realize.
Which of course immediately, we would immediately have, so many folks would just jump all over us for the utopia that will never exist because of, something that you had said, about human nature, and but see that, and again, to tie all of this in, why it might seem a little scattered, but it's what I keep seeing, and what my and personal involvement is that and we've spoken about it a little, is I see it as all of us our differences are our strength. The fact that we are not all Hawaiian, the fact that we are not all French, the fact that we're not all white, the fact that we're not all anything.
The diversity makes the community resilient. Actually,
absolutely.
Sure.
One bug takes out everybody if everybody's the same. So I mean, I think that is, again, for me, that's one of my interpretations of natural law, is that our differences are our strength. That's what's going to allow us to survive.
But there is an important unity that is required, in community, and that unity is that we are ohana. Kawikiaole, I think, he hit it right on the nail on the head when he said, Keakua, made of one blood, all nations of men, people. So he's all people. He's saying everybody on earth was created
Right.
as ohana,
And that's what
and
I'm
they
saying.
are designed to live in unity and blessedness. So he's saying imbued in each of us is the goodness of the Creator. And that natural law, and see, this is where it departs from like natural law of the jungle, which is might makes right. Because if we're in if the community is in full awareness and awakening and remembrance of who we are and where we are, I believe that manner of love and truthful exchange in our differences make us strong, make us diverse, and
Certainly.
ultimately peaceful.
Right,
Because
exactly.
I think it's because
just
of our
like what-
disconnect.
Yeah, but it's
that
just
we're-
what Chris said. You know, I mean, the man from the Middle Ages
Right.
had already said, quoting a man from Greek antiquity,
Yeah.
talks about how if we do this correctly, you don't need laws at all.
Right.
You know, because you know you don't need that.
Well, because the law is
would
self-evident.
Well,
Yeah.
we would raise our children to know that you cause no harm.
Right.
You know,
You do no harm, you're truthful, and you honor your word.
And you say the truth and you do what you say.
That's it.
You know, and it's
That
and
is
that's
it.
and that's so that
Pretty
and that's
much.
and which is what Aloha Nation Live is all about.
Yes.
It's what it's really what La Lima Pahoa is
Yes,
about.
obviously.
You know,
That's
it's,
what we're about.
You know, it's what Chris and I are about. It's what you're about. It's what Roger, all the folks that are here are about, and is in there. And I think that there are tons of us, and we're all over the place. We're all over this island. We're all over the islands. We're all over the mainland. We're all over all of the mainland.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
We're all over the place. You know, and it's and even the ridiculous groupings, are they'll try to put a label on it, like in a political sense, they try to put a label on it to group us, and it's what we were talking-
anarchists or
you know,
something.
right?
like
Well,
that.
or progressives, or what we were talking about during the break, which is a fascinating thing, is that we're trying to do this, and there was you were talking about an example of someone. I think what is it? What would you call it? It would be sort of like trying to fix it from within. They wanted everybody to sign up
Oh, okay.
to become
Right.
part of.
To create specifically to create the Aloha Aina Party.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, you have to be a registered United States citizen, which makes you puts you squarely in the control of the
Right.
venue of the corporation. And so, whatever you do, you are limited by the glass ceiling, the four walls, of the corporation, and you have surrendered your unalienable rights to corporate law, which is a byproduct of politics and money.
Absolutely.
Again. And so this is why it's important, like in our specific, conversations about creating a longhouse so that we can start to shelter our people in need.
Sure.
And the benefits
Yep, and
of
this-
that
yeah,
are
this is a great example.
the benefits of that go beyond just the guy who's sleeping out, under the rain. The benefit to us that actually, well, a lot of people are now having to open up their personal space and homes,
Sure.
okay,
Sure.
so that other folks can
Are
be
not.
out of the rain.
Right. Are not sleeping.
Are not sleeping outside. And so if we keep surrendering our unalienable right to do whatever needs to be done in an open, accountable, public, aloha way, best practices, but we keep surrendering our right to a system that is a corporation. It's not even a government by their own definition. So I feel, now this is just my own personal choice on how I want to live my life and push back against false claims. I simply do whatever I think is necessary, in this case, creating an FCC-free radio station, low power. It's not, you know, we find a frequency that's not going to bother anybody on this side of the island.
Sure.
Maybe if we were in Maui or in Molokai, it would like interfere with a 93.5 there, but certainly nothing on this side.
It's a
of Big Island.
free frequency.
It's a completely free frequency, and not doing any harm.
Right.
Certainly not promoting any information or
Right.
emotion that incites violence. Okay, it could be encouraging lawfulness, and by encouraging lawfulness, by its very nature, lawfulness will run up against unlawfulness.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know what?
So the question is, what is unlawful?
Well, it's a funny, you know, all of the different people that we came up with in the research
Yes.
that had these, you know, these ideas specifically about natural law and how it was applicable to us in living in community.
Yeah.
Hobbes was Thomas Hobbes, 17th century, and he was, you know, he made up rules. You know, he made up lists of rules. So the very first law of nature, that every man ought to endeavor peace. That was his very first law, as far as he has hope of obtaining it. And when he could not obtain it, that he may seek and use all helps and advantages of war. So, you know, interesting, you know, these are great, you know, great thinkers that came up with this, because it's such a big, involved question. Because even yourself, when we talk about this, if, you know, when we say lawfulness, when we say do no harm, it's, you know, we're constant, aren't we always talking within the context of this existing system, much like why I wanted you to tell us about the woman that wants to start this other party, this other political party. It's signing up, exactly as you said, for the system. So so it's, you know, you're trying to you know, to correct it from within. You know, you're going to sign up for a certain amount of it with what she's doing, with the party that she's doing.
Well, the intention of the Aloha Aina party clearly has ultimately as a goal, but they're so censored. People are so self-censored that they can't even say that our ultimate goal is independence, is Hawaiian independence. Now, when I say Hawaiian, I don't mean native Hawaiians.
Sure, yeah.
Hawaiian is a nationality. So if we choose to be, I am, although I'm full Okinawan, and in our language, before the Japanese came and occupied Okinawa, we're Uchinanchu. But I'm Hawaiian because that's my nationality. Even though our de jure government, our natural law de jure government, has not been completely formed yet, the seeds of that community, of that lawfulness, are being planted. You know, so Hawaiians of all colors, I used to say all races, and you corrected me. Says, wait, there's one human race.
That's
You're
only one
right.
race.
So Hawaiians of all colors, one people with aloha for all.
Sure.
So, you know, we're solid with that, and we're moving in that direction. It's just that as we move forward in creating activities and projects to better our lives, improve our quality of life.
I think then to get others involved, right? To get others to understand what it is that we're talking about. It's not necessarily a.
Well, I think to know that you don't have to necessarily follow what somebody tells you if you know that that's not the way to do it.
Well, and that's back to your quote.
But it also is like, you have to tell people, you have to let people know that they're not alone, and when they think about things like that. And so I think that is a really
Right, but how are we getting there? You know, I mean, are we when we get our information out, you educate people, and you will be educating people on Wednesday, right? Do you want to
starting next Wednesday, next month,
Yeah.
which is June 7th, Wednesday, every Wednesday, Pahoa Museum has allowed me to teach Natural Law 101. And Natural Law 101 is as far as you need to go. You don't need to go to 200 and 300 level. 101 gets you pretty much up to speed. And now we're in the ohana of awakened people who have now remembered who they are and where they are, and are given their re-empowered in remembrance of their unalienable rights.
Yeah, and it's the system, right? That we're talking about. So and one of the things that we had talked about off air, but we wanted to talk about on air as an example of an action, of taking words and moving them into a
getting it
action,
done.
Getting it done.
Yeah.
Right? It's, and doing that is in providing. There's an interest. There's a party that has property, and they are interested in providing housing for transient folks.
Yes.
Or for homeless folks.
Yes.
And at the hoops is really what we're talking about, right? The hoops.
The red tape.
The regulation and the hoops and the stuff that they want to make these instead of letting it happen, instead of in what would you call it? Would you call it more of a bygone era where we could just have gone and everybody in town, it's like a barn race?
Well, we can still do that, actually, and I think we need to organize ourselves in that lawful capacity. I'm not going to mention what church it is, but it is a spiritual community, a religious spiritual community that has the land and that has the plan. They've got programs, they've got contacts, they might even have the funding for materials. But simply to build the longhouse, not to add tens of thousands of dollars of plumbing infrastructure and whatever else United Nations building codes are now being surrendered by the state to follow.
Sure, imposed.
Okay, and impose upon the people who simply want to take best practice, simple steps to to heal the immediate situation.
An actual solution.
Right, and so this is at the crux of our conversation tomorrow. I think it's really less than 50-50 that the leadership of this religious organization are going to feel comfortable in doing the provably lawful thing. They will probably decide to again surrender to what is provably unlawful, which is of great concern to me, because in this crisis time, especially for people that say faith without works is dead, why then are we choosing, I'm not, but why are certain leadership put in a position to, empower people to have faith and to do good works on that faith? Well, this is the great dilemma and choice that we have to make right now. And gratefully, I'm happy that we were in that same smaller light when we served notice to the mayor and the county council and the police chief about our lawful action and about our claim that everything that they represent is fundamentally part of an unlawful matrix.
And you're speaking specifically about us.
FCC free.
Right, to do this.
Yeah, I mean, okay, it's truthful, it's doing no harm, but it is rebuking unlawful law. Okay? Not with any malice, just as a point of fact.
Well, and then very much to your point,
we planting seeds.
You serve notice.
We serve notice with Aloha. Say,
you know
what? Yeah, if there's anything we have said in our whereas statements, in our claim, then you must rebut that, respond to that in writing for the public venue. Just like we have taken the step to write it down and put it in the public venue, at the library. It's still sitting there at the library, big 11 by 17, Nobody's taking it down. It's been over a month now.
Wow.
I'm surprised.
Interesting.
I think the library people kind of like it,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, well,
but there it is, you know.
Well, then it is, and it's part of.
Librarians are great.
The librarians are librarians.
But I mean, in part of this, and I think it's actually, I think part of it is such an overused word, but I think it's important that you point out it's a freedom.
An unalienable
that
right.
we're talking about. Right?
Yes.
It's that we've been illegally oppressed by we have these illegal forces that have made rules.
Now you're making a claim, which is good. You need to be prepared, and we are, to support that claim, because you said there are, illegal forces that are making illegal, regulations upon us. We can actually support that claim in writing with public record facts and evidence. Now that's why shame on us as a community, not just us sitting around our friends. Shame on us as a community if we're not able to bring lawfulness back into our lives.
Certainly. Yeah.
And through this talk radio, communication, that process begins.
That's right. That's absolutely, and that's why we're doing.
Yeah.
That's why we wanted to do it. We wanted to do it because we want the and in particular in today's world, because where was it? I mean, certainly as kids, there was. I don't recall fake news. I don't recall that being a term that was used very often. And even though I do think that there were even then, and as we discovered with talk radio, there were agendas being served. There was propaganda being put there where it was being manipulated. The information was being served up in order to serve an agenda. So I think it's why we do this, and it is so that we can exactly get our community, our community engaged, people to talk to us, to want to know more specifically about what you mean when you say lawfulness, and what you're talking about is, I think, and correct me, it is lawfulness in natural law.
Yes.
So lawfulness based on rights that we have as human breathing beings.
Yes.
Here,
unalienable rights. Unalienable. You can't, unless you surrender your unalienable right. Now, when our mothers, loving moms that they were, mine is in heaven right now, and currently to this day, when they signed their newborn child into the Social Security Administration to apply for a birth certificate, they don't know that they're actually, in view of the corporation, signing a contract.
Sure.
That this baby is now property of the corporation.
Part of the system.
Part of the system. So, once again, unalienable right.
UPS code.
An unalienable right of full disclosure in any so-called agreement, in any so-called contract. So that's why when we go into the corporate court system, we not only proclaim, yes, I'm a living, breathing, true human being, but we also must go in and openly rebuke and challenge and hold accountable any false contract, any false claim, any false presumption. Because this is how the British Accreditation Regency agents, the bar agents, not all of them, some of them don't even know what that acronym means.
Sure.
I just met a young one who looked at me and goes, what does that mean? I said, you're a lawyer? You don't even know what bar stands for. I told him, whoa, his eyes got wide open. It's like, yeah, I guess I am an esquire.
Tell everybody what it is again. That's great.
Well, yes, BAR stands for British Accreditation Regency. Okay? Why is it that we have to pay foreign agents of the Crown Corporation to practice law? We got to pay them big money to represent us and in practicing law. When all that is required in our unalienable rights is to live lawfully, each of us. And so, I mean, I don't have to go to school and pay, thousands of dollars to get a degree so I can get a British accreditation Regency license so I can practice law?
Yeah.
No. Come to one Natural Law 101 class and we will remember who we are and where we are.
Yeah.
And now your freedom becomes self-evident. The right of freedom, and then the responsibility that is concomitant with that goes along
absolutely,
with that.
yeah, because it's not just promoting a chaotic.
No.
I
The do no harm
I-
part and the honoring your word part and the being truthful part naturally limits us, to yes, be free,
it makes us
but be responsible too. Yeah.
Responsible to ourselves, responsible to our community,
Yeah.
responsible to our planet. It's that, and that's where I think that we are working the hardest, is to try to promote the idea that it's the package deal, is that if you are lawful, if you are one that is doing no harm, if you are the one that is doing what you say,
You're truly free.
then you are a free person.
You're a free man,
You're
free
making
woman,
free
yeah.
decisions.
Yeah.
You're engaging in free discussion, and you're making a decision freely, or agreeing to do whatever it is that you are the agreement is about.
Yeah. Can you imagine the
The
potential
exchanges.
that's unleashed?
Yeah.
I mean, in the individual, let alone the synergy of free people with unalienable rights coming together and being creative in solving problems, in creating new discoveries.
And it's an interesting thing.
you can't
because-
create a discovery, sorry. In creating,
Well, I think you can create opportunities for new discoveries.
yeah, sure.
That's what
Sure.
we have done technologically. We have done that over and over and over and over again.
Well, okay, that brings us back to, say, energy. There is a free energy unit already built in Kona. It's called Ocean Thermal Energy Conversion. But because our unalienable right to full disclosure has been trespassed, namely, we're not able to tap into that free energy technology that basically takes the temperature difference of the surface water and the lower water, and then the low boiling point of liquid ammonia, and that generates steam, liquid ammonia steam that turns the turbines. Okay, so the opportunity for extracting hydrogen from H2O, from water, these things are already there. I mean, the Navy has already converted at least 2 warships that were nuclear powered into running on seawater. Okay, so yes, we must demand full disclosure. Otherwise, we're just gonna get what they give us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we get what we deserve because we don't stand up
And that's
in our lawfulness.
but it's amazing, because that's what I keep coming back to. That's what I wanted to talk about is our actions. In moving forward, they're like this. This is the radio station. The action, the element of it is it's disconnected from the system and functions. We function within the FM the scope.
Yeah.
We function on the internet. We function, but we disconnected from that corporation.
Well, I think that's
how do we go with now?
We have to do that.
Absolutely. So then our next action, because ultimately, wouldn't it be that we're going to? It's sort of like disconnecting from this disease. Like we have this tumor.
Yeah.
Of bureaucracy that is that's just there's so many things.
Well, it's metastasized everywhere. Yes. I think we just keep it real simple. I mean, it's like the FCC low power FM. everyone I talk to, people of all political venue persuasions, are positive about the fact that we're rebuking Babylon in a peaceful way,
Sure.
in a public way, and wondering when are the agents in dark uniforms going to come and
Sure,
knock
sure.
on the door. Well, I think there's a lot of darkness and there's a lot of crime and criminality, corruption out there, but there's also a lot of good people that are working for the NSA, FBI, CIA. They're there too, and in our government. I'm looking forward to some of the to Mayor Harry Kim and maybe some of the county council members
Absolutely.
to join us.
I hope that they will. I don't know that. So
Well, as we keep going,
we
and
have,
it's
though,
going to happen.
I do think that it's important to state that we have invited them.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
know, I mean, we have extended an invitation to the county council members, and certainly any other
Hey,
political
if
figure that would, because I think it's important that they will engage.
let me ask you a kind of a practical, logistical question. Knowing the people you guys know, because you're Puna people, yeah, the people the resources and skills that they have, and some of the folks we know on the Hilo side, east side, that together, if we were to agree that we're not going to wait for a religious organization to build a longhouse, that we ourselves would design and fundraise and actually build the longhouse
Right.
in full openness and invitation to all parties.
The
whether
next action.
Just take that action. By taking that action for the public record with public invitation and full accountability, I think that's the best way to actually show people, it's not something crazy or dangerous or scary. It's actually what we're designed to do.
Right. And
Fix
it's-
problems,
And it's
man.
very much what I was saying is it's an action.
Yeah.
So our first or an action that has been taken is to have done this radio station and to broadcast.
Yes.
So that so we have done that and we continue. And we'll continue to do that. And and we will
Thank you,
continue to
thank you,
do it
Thom.
on 93.5 Aloha Nation Live is what we are. It's and it's we're having a little bit of a challenge with our transmitter at the moment, so our FM is hurt, but that will be back.
We're
up.
getting some good support now
Yeah.
from some people that
And that's also, I mean, we
that
can,
want
we
to see
can
us
encourage,
back up. Yeah.
we can encourage folks that
really-
might be listening to this that there is, you can, and we encourage you to if you feel like donating for that, we would like to upgrade our transmitter stuff. I wanted to because we're actually getting kind of late. But there was some that I wanted to just touch on some of the stuff that we learned in looking up natural
Sure,
law.
sure.
So that because I thought that some of it was just, if not so much of it, really it touches on what you have said for so long, and then what this little bit of research represents is centuries of people, of great minds, of learned people of their time frames, great debaters, people that would do what you do. They put their thought out there so that people could critique it, so that people could hear it, evaluate it, go and say, you're like, what, gee, you're crazy. Like they could say that to these folks, and they did often, and then and a lot of the philosophers argued, to the death about their differences of opinions of things. And natural law was always one of the topics because it's so fundamental. It transcends all of the styles of isms. It transcends all of the styles of government.
Yeah,
You know,
it
goes
the beauty
beyond,
of it. It's the
goes
beauty
beyond
of it.
monarchies. It goes certainly beyond the democracies or corporatocracies.
Well, any political venue, any social political venue, can be measured in its lawfulness by its ability to incorporate natural law. You know, you can have all kinds of isms, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
and organizations and relationships. But no matter what organization, what so-called government, or what relationship, ultimately, the law of truth and love, the life of that, the living of that, you know, the law of Aloha, has served our people in Hawaii the best, and it serves me best. So I have just basically chosen to go with that, especially if we have facts and evidence to show that our claim is true and it's lawful. Once again, shame on us if we're not able to achieve the remedy to you know, our beautiful destiny here in Hawaii, because we were too afraid or too ignorant to do our due diligence and learn about and remember and then take action upon the unalienable rights that we have, you know, within the natural law.
It is, and it's funny when we found that our research was dealing with philosophers that were, I suppose they were part of when they lived, and so, you know, in their knowledge base and what was available to them then, what the natural law was very close to the things that you describe and say and have been saying forever.
Well, I don't think it can change.
What we also found, though, which I thought was fascinating, was that when we went to natural law, and it was preceded by a religion, so a natural law, but it's a particular religious interpretation, if you will. Thomas Aquinas being one.
Okay.
Of natural law.
Okay.
Interesting stuff. Islamic natural law. You know, like always, an interesting thing. A gentleman that was an Islamic scholar and scientist basically understood natural law as survival of the fittest. That was the way that he wanted it. Now, his argument was that the antagonism between human beings could only be overcome through a divine law. So,
Interesting.
So you know, his interpretation, and very scholarly person, his interpretation was that human beings are antagonistic, and that the only thing that could control them would be a particular law laid down by a divine being. Then the Sunni theology of natural law would kind of similar, where it's the human mind could know of the existence of God and major forms of good and evil without the help of revelation. They kind of use the example of stealing, that that it's evil, but man will reason that if he's starving, then the stealing is justified. And actually, that was something that you had found as well, wasn't it? In one of the other philosophers, they were. It was more the statement about where war was justified, right?
Well, I don't know that they meant like war. I think fighting against what is not right.
No, that's right. We talked about that because we were thinking that what they could have been meaning by the word war was more of a war of words, right? Or more of a debate of not necessarily of actual physical
If
contact.
something's wrong, you should step up to it. That's how I like to view it. I don't know exactly what they're thinking.
You've heard the quote, all that is required for evil to triumph is for good men to say nothing. to do and say nothing.
Yeah.
And so, your unalienable right does come with responsibility. And if we imperfectly, as we are, apply that responsibility, you're moving towards balancing and rebuking that which is evil, that which is goes against the law.
I thought that this was interesting that in contemporary jurisprudence, they're in several different doctrines, but these great little quotes. One of them says that just laws in nature, they can be discovered or found, but they can't be created. So meaning that they're the natural law. They're here. So you can discover them, you can find them, but you cannot man-make them. You can't man-make a natural law.
Right.
So I thought that was just a
similarly by your own will and bodily control, if you will, you cannot wake yourself up in the morning.
Right. Well, it's interesting.
You can't open your eyes unless.
It's funny. It's they can emerge by a natural process of resolving conflicts. So there's a natural process to resolving conflict. That is.
Yeah, and actually we do teach that in the
cool.
Natural Law 101. It's real simple. Okay, I don't want to go too long over time, but basically, if a man or woman feels like someone else, a man or woman, has done them harm, they gotta not just talk about it and gossip about it and complain about it. They actually have to get the pen and paper out and create a verified claim and bring forward evidence that individual harmed me. This is how you actually convene the jury of sovereign peers. Otherwise, it's just whining.
Yeah.
And so this is the simple way that, we can't just summon God. God shows up and goes, here's how, I view it. No, the God within all of us it summons the circle of sovereigns, and then now we trust that without any conflict of interest, we will examine evidence, deliberate, and come up with the just remedy. So it's really quite simple and beautiful.
Yeah, I think what we found, and it was I was just so I think happy, kind of happy, relieved to run across was that, because at first, and like looking into this, it was it kind of almost instantly went into a lot of religious overtones.
Yeah.
Like a lot of things that were separating. I think some of the things that are they're part of it, because where
co-opted definitions.
Yeah, well, and then some of the stuff that where they tried, or different philosophers were splitting hairs. Or the Bible was used as a preference.
Okay.
And so and often, interesting enough, it almost all of them will ultimately make reference to what your point has been, I think, consistently, in that it's not a law written by man.
No.
It's like that last statement
Correct.
of where it can be discovered or found, but it can't be created. And I think that's why I wanted to do the show on this. I wanted to make sure that we could first understand why we do the talk show.
Thank you.
And why I think that it's important. And then I wanted a chance to look at all these different definitions of natural law and what people might have in their heads of what it means. So I think it's going to be great if people will come to the Pahoa Museum on Wednesdays, right?
That's tomorrow.
Yeah,
It's coming already, yeah.
What time?
6 to 8 p.m. And Sarah Williams has opened up the museum. We're so excited about that. And we're going to actually talk about applying what we've discussed today. And I think that's a dream come true for me.
Yep, great.
Really.
Yep. Well, it's
You know,
it's from words to action.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
it's,
brother. And
it's
only in Big Island, you know.
No, but it's good. It's good that,
Yeah.
that that it's happening, and it's and hopefully, like we've talked about tonight, we're trying to get to the place where we can make this interactive, where we can
Yeah, well,
where we can get
a
people
little
to-
more
to-
investment. We can have a landline
Yep,
and
yep.
then promote that.
Yep, and
sure.
then folks can call in, and then we're even looking at a way of like having somebody perhaps on a computer and be able to do the equivalent of a Twitter or
Oh, I
Facebook,
see.
for an ongoing text conversation, or even maybe if we have to start off with just using cellular technology and then doing text,
Okay.
and be able to answer questions or
Okay.
to have folks that are listening to us, be able to interact with us live. But it's so it's 93.5 Aloha Nation Live.
Okay.
We are going to put this, Roger. Thank you very much. We're going to put this up on YouTube. I think.
Aloha.
Thank you, Gene.
Hemp
Gene
Fest, Hemp
telling us
Fest.
that's right, and we do want to
When
tell
is
you all
that?
about the things that we have to.
August 18th, Uncle Robert's.
Yep, actually, why don't we show Roger this? Roger, this is La Lima Pahoa's continuation of the hemp convention. It's going to be at Kaimu at Uncle Robert's, an extraordinarily beautiful place with incredible people. And that will be on, what does it say here, the 28th?
18th.
The 18th, August 18th. Then there will be tons and tons of information for everybody. And this is Thom and Chris Gagney. And we are going to sign off. And we'll see you next Tuesday.
Mahalo.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Didn't carry your glasses. I didn't.